This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Hello and welcome into the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. Alex Egan, Ryan Gellner with you today. The Bison are 7-1 through 8 games of the season, coming off a big win at Northern Iowa last week. It was kind of a nail-biter there right at the end. Northern Iowa kind of grabbed some of the momentum, but NDSU's defense comes back and takes a big win.
Yeah, a couple of things. The defense obviously starting to play better and better each game. North Dakota State with 4 interceptions last week, a couple at the end of the game, big ones by Matt Plank and Trey Dempsey on back-to-back drives to kind of seal that deal in the fourth quarter. But NDSU wasn't able to put the hammer down offensively. Speaking of interception, on cue, there's one early in that football game, and the Bison defense, Alex, starting to play better and better as the season goes on. We've seen this before. Yeah,
it was good to see this Bison defense really go up against a tough Northern Iowa offense. Granted, it was a redshirt freshman making his first start, second start.
They will take it.
But a win is a win. The problem is you see number 22 getting into the end zone here. He left this game early in the first half and did not return, and we have learned that King Frazier will not be available today for the Bison, so I'll never get sick of watching that. So no King Frazier today for the Bison as we take a look at the schedule, or the standings here for the Missouri Valley Football Conference. 4-1 are the Bison, and today's opponent, Youngstown State, 4-1 as well, kind of convoluted up there at the top. 3 teams at 4-1 records.
That's for the races. The automatic bid would come from whoever ends up being on top of this thing when it's all said and done. There will only possibly be 2 teams, maybe 1, by the end of the day. Either North Dakota State or Youngstown State will knock each other out. South Dakota State has to do their part to stay on top. But right now, it is a race between those 3 teams to see which team can finish. And then you get into the tie-breaking scenarios and all of those things. There can be multiple league champions, but only 1 auto bid. But even the auto bid gets selected into the tournament. So it doesn't really matter who gets the auto bid because let's say South Dakota State gets the auto bid. North Dakota State could still be a 1 or a 2 seed and move in from there. So it all matters, but in the end, sometimes it doesn't matter either. It is a race up top.
We'll show you the FCS poll that came out later on in the show, and we'll have some fun with that and talk about it. Let's take a look at the Bison schedule. Just 3 games left. Youngstown State today, Indiana State next week at home. That's the final home game of the regular season for the Bison, and then they wrap it up on the road in Vermillion against South Dakota. This is not an easy stretch. I think you have to get through today and be healthy getting through today. Indiana State is no joke. They have played some teams really tough this year. And then South Dakota at the Dakota Dome, you never know what you're going to get.
Well, these final 3 games are all huge. When you're sitting on top, you need wins. The NDSU right now, their resume is probably good enough to get them into the playoffs, and now it's a matter of seedings. We'll talk about the poll in a little bit, but really, it's North Dakota State can take care of itself. 3 wins, things are going to take care of themselves. And we'll see where it goes from here. But NDSU with a big one today against one of the best defenses in the nation, a big one next week at home. You have to win your home games, especially in this conference.
You pretty much just have to win out in order to guarantee yourself that first round bye.
That would help.
And the one of those top 2 seats. Well, it is a gorgeous fall day here in the Valley. Let's go to a guy who is taking in the sights, smells, and sounds from the tailgate lot. It's Mike Morkin. Hey, Mike.
If there's one big perk in this job, it's a chance to go around the tailgating section and sample some of the delicacies. And I had to come back here and talk to you after getting a chance to sample some of your elk. First of all, your name?
Kent Ness.
And you, I understand.
And I'm Brad Ness.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I had some elk earlier, and it was just awesome, moist and everything. With hunting going on right now, a lot of people mixing up their meat and everything. Tell me a little bit about what you know about what's in your elk.
Well, it was done by John and Wayne, so I really can't take too much of the credit, but they mix a lot of pork in with it, and it keeps it moist and good.
Well, and moist is everything, Brad, because sometimes elk can be a little bit dry, so obviously it's a good addition.
Yeah, elk is normally a very lean meat, so the spices and the things that the guys at John and Wayne's did to give this the flavor is really special, but it is tasty and healthy.
All right, we've set it up, so let's see what you got. Where did you get your elk, by the way?
Montana area.
Out in Montana? Okay, here we go. Oh, my. And there's a fork. Was it a good size elk?
Yeah, I had a cow, and I think Brad had a nice 5x5.
Oh, so you both have it then, huh? Goodness, that's good. That's good. That is good. That's real good. You liking it?
I love it, yeah.
Okay. And do you do deer at all as well?
Well, we haven't for a few years, but normally
Hard to get a license around here, huh?
Yeah, and next game we'll be having elk steak hors d'oeuvres. So that what we always Kent and Cindy set up the wild game feed. So each week at tailgating, we're doing some type of wild game.
Little mix and match. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Ness Brothers. Thank you.
All right, thank you
all
very
right.
much. Yeah, if you could just bring some of that back here to the studio in Fargo, we'd really, really appreciate that. All right, we're going to step aside. We come back, though. We're going to talk about this first ever FCS power poll that was released this week. Plus, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball for both teams. Pretty darn good. That's all next here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. Welcome back to the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football pregame show. All right, this week the FCS Selection Committee released their first ever pre-tournament rankings, where they were ranking the top 10 with the idea, I guess, that if the season ended today, this would be the top 10 seeds heading into the 2014 FCS tournament. At least that's what we were led to believe. But when you see this top 10, you have to just scratch your head and figure out, how is North Dakota State at 4 below a team that they beat in Eastern Washington?
Everybody's got that question. Here, Jacksonville State is 7-1. They have one top 25 win. Sam Houston State is 8-0. They don't have any top 25 wins, no FBS wins. Their strength of schedule, there's only 22 teams that are worse than them in strength of schedule. They have a D2 win. Eastern Washington, like you said, lost to North Dakota State. North Dakota State has 5 top 25 wins already this year, by far more than anybody else. They have the FBS win. They have the biggest strength of schedule. And then they beat, of course, Eastern Washington head-to-head. Those top 4 absolutely are a head-scratcher. But where does it go from here?
That's the biggest question, I believe.
Because all of a sudden, North Dakota State is punished for playing Iowa, the FBS win, because Sam Houston State played somebody called, I'm not making this up, Oklahoma Panhandle State. Who? They have 2 wins in Division II. The Aggies, they crushed them. That counts. That works out for them. So why is North Dakota State playing Iowa when they could be crushing D2s that are in their backyard? It doesn't make any sense.
You certainly have to just kind of look at it and shake your head if you're a fan of any of really these teams, because let's be honest, Sam Houston State, they're winning by a ton, which is great, but they're not playing anybody. North Dakota State is playing a very difficult schedule. By the logic of this, Northern Iowa would be 125th, but we all know they're not the worst team in the FCS.
By the logic of this, South Dakota State should be in the top 10, and they're nowhere to be found.
Yes.
If you're a Jackrabbit right now, you're going, what in the heck is going on?
I know.
Everybody's going, what in the heck is going on? The committee's out of touch. They don't have any criteria. They need to fix this. The good news is they have, 15 days to fix this before the real rankings come out. But how do you justify, if all 4 continue to win out, how do you justify flipping 3 or 4 to 1 or 2? You don't. It's still going to be screwed up. They didn't do their homework on this.
No.
It makes them look really bad. FCS committee, you don't look very good right now.
And it's not a good look for them. They need to just figure it out.
You have 15 days to get it right.
And
I'm not confident they will.
We'll see 2 more polls come out, so we'll see if there's any shakeup in the 2 more pre-tournament polls that come out, including one that'll be released a couple days ahead of the tournament.
If anything, if you're North Dakota State, right now, what this might provide is bulletin board material.
Oh, yes.
Chris Kleiman walks in and says, you're the 4th best team in the country. Go ahead and prove it.
If I was Coach Kleiman, there would be 4s taped all over that locker room just to let those guys, just to give them that extra motivation. And we will see what comes of this power poll. We'll make sense of it. I don't know what.
To me, again, NDSU is punished for playing in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, the best conference in FCS football. Doesn't make sense.
We'll step aside from the power poll. We'll stop from the power poll. But we're going to talk about these 2 teams today, Youngstown State and North Dakota State. The defenses for both of these teams
that's real.
are phenomenal. Youngstown State, I'm just going to show you some of these numbers that Youngstown State has put up. 14 touchdowns. They've given up 14 touchdowns in 8 games, just 124 total points. That averages out to less than 16 points a game. They are number 3 in the FCS in scoring defense. By comparison, NDSU, 17 touchdowns against, 147 total points, averaging under 19 points a game, number 11 in the FCS in scoring defense.
Both teams have gotten better. Youngstown the last 3 weeks giving up just 12 points a game. How good are they? One North Dakota State coach told me earlier this week it's the best defense they've seen on tape in the last couple of years.
That's impressive considering they've seen their own defense on tape in the last couple of years.
The best they've seen in the last couple of years. Avery Moss, the transfer from Nebraska, 8.5 sacks, 10.5 tackles for loss, and then Derek Rivers, 8 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. Their DNs are as good as anybody in the country.
This is evident by, we'll show you this next graphic here. Youngstown State is number 6 in the FCS in total defense. The opponents are averaging under 5 yards per play and 276 yards per game. That is impressive. They're not giving up those huge plays. They're not giving up big gains throughout games. By comparison, North Dakota State, number 24. Opponents are getting over 5 yards and about 330. You throw the Eastern Washington game in there where everybody was getting 500 yards that day. But that is the comparison. This Youngstown State defense is real, and it is good.
It's power against power. The top 2 scoring defenses in the league, the top 2 rushing offenses in the league, and the top 2 rushing defenses in the league. Power on power. They both like to run the football. They can both stop the run. If you're defensive minded, this is a football game for you, at least on paper. We've seen these things blow up in our face before. Could be 41-40. I don't think so. First touchdown may win this football game. You never know. These 2 defenses are for real.
It could be 41-40 with like 6 pick sixes in there. You never know what's going to happen. It's going to be fun, but we know that the defenses are both very, very good as we get into this game today. We will find out more about those defenses. We'll check in with the voice of the Penguins. Bob Hannon joins us in the next segment. That's all right here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. There he is, the head coach for Youngstown State, Bo Pelini, making his first trip.
Was that a smile?
Into the Fargo Dome.
Nope.
No, not out of Pelini. His Penguins come in with a 4-1 record in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, tied at the top with North Dakota State. Welcome back inside the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. We are pleased to be joined now by Bob Hannon, the voice of the Youngstown State Penguins. Bob, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be with you guys. We always enjoy coming into Fargo.
So, Bob, you guys bring in such a fantastic defense into this building, into the Fargo Dome. What makes the defense so good?
Well, I think you begin with a lot of seniors on defense. Our entire secondary is seniors. Our 2 defensive ends, Avery Moss and Derek Rivers, both seniors. But that's where it begins. Derek Rivers, a 4-year starter, consensus All-American. Potentially, I think, will be in an NFL training camp next summer. Now you add Avery Moss, who came here from Nebraska with Coach Pelini. A lot of pressure on quarterbacks, a lot of havoc. We lead the nation in sacks per game. So I think to have a chance today, they're going to have to get after Stick and put some pressure on him. And I think the fact that Coach Pelini's pedigree is defense. That's where he's made his mark as a coach. He had a great scheme with seniors on defense, and that's why they've been successful.
Bob, speaking of quarterbacks, tell me about yours. This quarterback situation, maybe the craziest in the conference. Hunter Wells, today's starting quarterback, was slated to start the first game of the season and then did not play, and then worked his way to 3rd and 4th in the depth chart. Here he is on top, expected to start today. What's going on with Hunter Wells?
Guys, I've been doing Youngstown State football for 28 years. I've never seen anything like this at the quarterback position. You know, Hunter was demoted back in August, mostly because he's your typical drop-back passer. Coach Pelini wants a running quarterback. So he's not part of the equation this year. Ricky Davis starts, Trent Hosick the backup, and then Nate Mays, our number 3 quarterback. We get some injuries. We're struggling to move the football. After the South Dakota State loss, Coach Pelini felt we couldn't win with the current quarterback situation, win big and go deep into the playoffs. So after 2 months of running scout team, he turns to Hunter Wells. Wells did not play well last week at all against Indiana State. It's a lot to ask of a quarterback who since August hasn't taken any snaps. Now you expect him to come into the Fargo Dome and play well. But honestly, to win today, Hunter, if he throws for 150 yards and doesn't turn it over, I think that gives him the best chance to win. This offense has really struggled. I also think a problem is wide receiver. We lost our 2 best ones from a year ago, Williams and Stubbs. So we have youth at wide receiver, and then the problem at quarterback has caused a big issue with the pass game.
So very quickly, yes or no, do you expect more than one quarterback today?
Yes. I think only because I think Nathan Mays can run the football a little bit, so there'll be some packages where you bring him in. But I think 80–90% of the snaps will be Hunter Wells, and I think we're going to ride Hunter out the rest of the year, whatever that looks like. So he'll be the guy that they're going to have to bank on to have a chance to get back to the playoffs for the first time in a decade.
All right. Thank you so much, Bob, for joining us. Have a great call today.
Thanks, guys. Good talking with you.
There's Hunter Wells. Wears number 6, a 6'5" junior. He is more of the traditional pocket passer with a big-time arm. Not going to see a lot of running out of Hunter Wells. His 14-yard run last week was a career long.
And he took a sack, too, so he's got 11 rushing yards because he lost 3 yards on that in that game. Passing yards, just 101. This is all from last week against Indiana State. Bob told us that Hunter watched the South Dakota State game from his apartment.
Didn't even travel with the football team. And that's the same way as what we thought was backup quarterback Ricky Davis is this week.
Yeah.
He didn't travel this week.
Yeah.
What is going on at quarterback for Youngstown State? Hunter Wells, I will tell you this, has made a bunch of career starts, has thrown for nearly 4,000 yards and 27 touchdowns in his career, so he can do it. It's a matter, will he do it?
And this was the guy the Bison saw last year. It was kind of a question mark. Would we see Hunter Wells? Would we see Ricky Davis? Well, we found out we're not going to see Ricky Davis at all, but instead we're going to see Nathan Mays if Hunter Wells doesn't play well.
Mays is a redshirt freshman. He can run it a little bit. Hunter Wells, the pocket passer, and he's got a big arm. He gained 20 pounds coming into this season. He's got a big-time arm. See if he shows it off against the Bison. They certainly need some offense today.
Well, they lost their receivers, but they do have Martin Ruiz, a senior running back of 5'11", 200 pounds out of Tampa, Florida. He's got 127 carries on the year, 695 yards, averaging close to 87 yards a game. 7 rushing touchdowns, and they use him out of the backfield as well, sparingly, when they do throw the football.
Early in the season, Ruiz, he split carries with Jody Webb and Tevin McCaster, but Ruiz is getting the bulk of the carries right now for Youngstown State. Second in the conference with 87 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Lately, though, 26 carries for 301 yards in his last 3 games. They like to feed this guy the rock and try to get things going.
So we spotlighted probably the 2 guys on offense that will make a difference, and that's probably the only 2 guys on offense that are going to make a difference for this Youngstown State team.
More than likely, a lot of defensive talk today. We've talked about the phenomenal defensive ends, but offense for a lot of people is what sells tickets. You come, you get to know the quarterback, the running backs. That's who they are. Hopefully, you don't hear about them today in the Fargo Dome because the Bison defense is pretty good too. They'll introduce themselves to Mr. Ruiz and Mr. Wells.
It should be interesting. We've been told that if Hunter Wells plays a decent enough game, he will be the guy that goes.
Isn't that interesting?
If Mays might come in if Hunter Wells just plays awful. So we'll see how that quarterback situation goes. I think the biggest shocker of it all, Ricky Davis not on the trip at all. So very interesting, the quarterback situation. Of course, Bo Pelini's had some interesting quarterback situations at his previous stops as well.
You could have stopped. You could have stopped after Bo Pelini and interesting, and everybody would have went, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's very fair. We're going to step aside. When we come back, I'm going to talk with Brad Ambrosius. I learned a few things about the senior defensive end. He's really into planes.
He's flying high right now as well.
High.
So
yeah, he flew
the
through the air.
Bison defense is flying high.
He knocked Eli Dunn's helmet off last week. We'll talk about that as well. Well, that's all next right here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
Welcome back to our Fargo studios. We are getting set for the Bison to take on Youngstown State. We are getting ready. The teams are getting ready. And the fans in the tailgate lot are getting ready too. It's where we find Mike Morkin. Hey, Mike.
If there's one thing here in the tailgate section that we certainly aren't lacking of, it's the number of flags that are flying so proudly, all with different sayings and colors, all representing Bison pride. But that one that you're staring at right now has to be one of the largest, if not the largest, here, there, and it belongs to you. What's your name?
Chad Kohler.
Chad, tell me about the story of getting what could be the largest NDSU flag in tailgate area.
Well, it actually started about 5 years ago. Tailgating, as you can see, everybody's got their flag, so one person tries to outdo the other. Well, long story short, I decided to go to Shields one day and ask them what's the biggest flag they had. So they told me, and I go, well, that's not big enough. So with the help of Jeff over there at Shields, we put together that flag, and he ordered it for me, and it was at the end of that year in 2011, so I didn't get it till 2012, but it took them about 2 months. I think it was made down in Nebraska, and they shipped it up here to me.
What size is it?
10 feet by 15 feet.
10 feet by 15 feet, special ordered. I have to ask you, what did it cost you?
$500.
$500. Now, does it fly anywhere else other than on the road or here for tailgating?
Anywhere where we're at for a Bison game.
Anywhere where we're at for Bison. Tell me about your setup here. You got a large crowd.
Yeah, my crew and Bear, the crew next to us here, we formed together about 4 years ago. We always tailgated next to each other, and we just kind of meshed into one big unit. So we have 3 buses, and I would say 40 to 50 people that are here.
You ever give him any grief about the size of his flags?
Funny thing is, we were just talking about that this morning. They were just looking at that flag and wanted to make some of theirs bigger. I'm going, wow, you guys are a little late.
Very good. Well, Chad, it flies proudly.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Go Bison! All right, back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks, Mike. To do start flag business. $500. Holy smokes. All right, each week here on the pregame show, we like to get to know the players beyond just a uniform number and a helmet. This week I sat down with Bison senior defensive end Brad Ambrosius, who has aspirations beyond football and a love of the skies. He's featured in this week's Beyond the Game. All right, Brad, first off, you're from Wisconsin. You come to NDSU, your senior year now. How did coming to NDSU, how did playing football for NDSU come about?
Well, thank Coach Polsek for that one before he left to go to NIU for a little bit and then came back. I never even knew this place existed really in high school. Coming from Green Bay, you don't hear about North Dakota that much, but as soon as I started getting recruited, I started looking into it, and I really enjoyed when I came up here the family atmosphere that came from being an NDSU Bison, that came from the fans, that came from the coaches, and everyone that was here involved. Even to this day, as a senior, I'll go around and random people see me at the supermarket and be like, hey, like, nice game, like, it's nice to meet you and stuff. And they're just super nice here, super friendly, which is a big selling point for me. And I really love NDSU and the fact that everyone's a big family here.
You come to NDSU and you pick a major that maybe not a lot of people expect from a guy who's out there, hitting people constantly. You're trying to help people in education. How did choosing an education major come out?
Well, yeah, a lot of people don't think a big defensive lineman like me would be a big soft teddy bear, but being a teacher is something that I wanted to do since I was midway through high school. I saw a lot of people in my school that were poor and depressed and things of that nature, and we had a lot of good teachers at my high school that took them under their wing and took them into special classrooms and special places where they got some treatment and got the help they needed. And I have a huge respect for teachers and what they do. And I think they're very undervalued, very, very underpaid. They help America's youth when, let's say, a kid doesn't have a father figure, doesn't have a mother figure in their life. And those teachers become role models and father figures and mother figures for them. And that is awesome to me, and that's what I want to do.
The teaching thing, obviously, football's a fun thing to do as well. Would you consider, being like a coach as well if you got a teaching job at high school is what you want to do, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I definitely want to coach. Football and basketball, hopefully. When I was in high school, I did a lot of basketball. I didn't play my senior year because I focused on football, but basketball was my number one love coming into high school. So I used to be a scrawny 6'5", 190-pound kid my freshman year of high school, but now I blossomed a little bit to 250. So basketball and football coaching is definitely something I want to do with teaching.
Did you blossom more when you got here and Coach Kramer got a hold of you?
Well, yeah. I mean, Coach Kramer and his eating plan and his strength conditioning plan, yeah, he pushes you to the limit, and everything he's done for me is outstanding. I came in, I was a little chunky, but you know, he's really trimmed me down a little bit. I'm still a little chunky, but.
You said you're also really into model airplanes. Where did model airplanes come about?
Correct. When I was little, my mom would always give me Christmas ornaments every year of airplanes. And I'm not sure exactly where it started, but the first memory I have is every Christmas getting these ornaments of model airplanes as gifts. And you know, some kids get Xboxes, whatever. But these model airplanes were the greatest things ever. And I love the ornaments. I love just like having hands-on model airplanes to like play with and build upon. And had imaginary dreams of being a pilot one day, but you know, it didn't work out. Here at NDSU, I don't have a lot of time to do that stuff because of homework and everything, but yeah, I have a pretty big obsession with airplanes and flying.
So it's like the kid in you comes out. I mean, you're still a young man, but the kid in you comes out when you see these airplanes?
Oh yeah, especially when we're flying to away games, to and from. I get really excited. I love takeoff. I love being in the air. Even like we hit turbulence and everyone's freaking out on the plane. I'm just like, this is awesome. This is the greatest thing ever. What are you guys freaking out about? But yeah, I love everything to do with airplanes.
Okay, we're gonna have to ask you to maybe sell somebody out here. Who is the worst flyer on the football team?
My roommate is Austin Kunert, and he hasn't flown much in his life. And usually, you can see him. We sit next to each other in the plane. You can see him clutching his seat and closing the window. I'm like, I don't want to look outside kind of thing. So he definitely doesn't like flying very much. Him or Jack Flankers, which, I mean, being bigger people, you can kind of imagine what goes up must come down kind of theory.
That's so great. Have you ever been to the Air Museum here? Do you check out the airplanes and stuff that they got on here?
I have actually. Me and Matt Plank took a public history class in college at NDSU, which we were required to go around to different museums and places like that. So we went to the National Air Museum. And I was pretty astounded with what was in there. You got helicopters from Vietnam in there, which is one of my favorite eras being a history teacher. They also have like wooden airplanes that people built in their garages and stuff. And it's just crazy to think about what's all in there. But yeah, it was a really good experience to go there.
That is so much fun, all this stuff outside of football that you may never think about with Brad Ambrosius, who you knocked the helmet off of a guy last week.
Right.
Can you walk me through that?
I hit him, and I was aiming right for what I always consider the sweet spot, which is right in the middle of the chest. And his helmet was a little loose to begin with, so I don't know if I actually hit him as hard as everyone thinks. But I hit him, I got up, and I actually thought he threw the football or something because I got up, and all of a sudden Greg Menard's right there screaming in my face and giving me headbutts to the head. I'm just like, all right, Greg, that's enough. Come on, calm down.
That's fantastic. You guys, I mean, your defense is playing at a high level. You guys are going up against a really tough defense this week. Do you guys get amped up when you see other defenses that are playing at the same level as you guys?
Yeah, we do. Obviously, football is a competitive sport, and all of us are great competitors. We would always love to be the #1 defense in the nation, but, I mean, that's a pretty high statistic to do. So whenever we see another good defense and we're going against them in a game, it's kind of like, well, whoever puts up the best defensive game is going to win this game, obviously. So we try to compete against them, compete against everyone else, and hopefully, you know, we come out with the W.
We want to thank Brad Ambrosius' mom, who joins us on the tailgates a lot, for sending in some of those photos of Brad in high school. It was great to talk with Brad and get to learn about him and how bad his teammates are at flying. Austin Kunert, Jack Plankers, we got to get those guys a little bit more experience up in the skies. That was a lot of fun talking to him. Brad's playing at a great level right now. Defense, defense, defense. That's going to be the story for today.
You think of all the defensive ends and getting after the quarterback, but for me, Brad Ambrosius is the run stopper on this defense, coming from that defensive end position. He had the sack last week, up to 4 on the season, but he did such a good job rotating with guys like Kyle Emanuel. But for me, for my money, I'll take him against the run rather than getting after the quarterback, although he does fine on both ends.
We saw that. Eli Dunn knows that as well from Northern Iowa. All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, we're going to walk down memory lane with a former Bison player. Cole Jurek joins us on Once a Bison this week. That's all to come.
Another defensive end.
Oh, so a theme here. That's all to come here on the pregame show.
17 minutes now until two very good defenses get after each other. Speaking of defense, North Dakota State's defense has been second to none the last 5 seasons. Great pressure on the quarterback, active linebackers, and some very good play in the secondary. For the defense to tick, the Bison have to get after the quarterback. To me, that all started with this week's Once a Bison. I think, Cole, when I look back at your career and I look at what you did for NDSU, you really brought the defensive end game and raised the importance of the defensive ends to where it is now. When you played, the defensive end and that position was a little bit of an unknown, but all of a sudden, when you were there, pressure on the quarterback, getting after the quarterback became a thing, and we've seen what it's done for NDSU. What do you remember about some of those defensive schemes and what the coaches told you about getting after the quarterback from the D end?
They told us a lot of times, hey, we want to be able to get after quarterbacks with 4 guys. If you get a one-on-one battle, you got to find a way to win it, and that's kind of what we practiced and preached all off season. And when we got into practices, we go, hey, there's a guy one-on-one matchup. He has to win that battle because someone's gonna be one-on-one every time. And I just kind of took it to heart. If I ever got a one-on-one battle, I had to go win it for the team, for the defense, and I kind of based my game off of that.
If you're getting after the quarterback, it puts a lot of pressure on other positions like defensive backs. So we've seen some great defensive ends come out of North Dakota State, but we've also now seen the defensive backs, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to the way the defensive ends are playing since your day and moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we work kind of in tandem with the cover guys as well. When we get pressure, they get interceptions because the ball's coming out quick. Bad balls are coming out, and hey, when we don't get to the quarterback, those guys cover long enough sometimes that we get, cheap freebie sacks and coverage sacks, and which are just as good as the rest of them.
I want to help you. I want you to help me understand how the defensive end works. So the ball's out there somewhere. I'll be the offensive tackle,
yep,
or the tight end, and you be that defensive end. Tell me some of your favorite things, some of your keys that you would do to try to get to the quarterback.
So if you're lined up at tackle for me, I played left defensive end, so I was always in a right-handed stance for the most part. I'm out here. As long as I was on the tackle in a third down situation or pass rush situation, I knew there's a spot behind that tackle that he's setting to, and if I can get to that spot before he can, I'm going to win every time.
So on a pass block, I'm taking a step back as the tackle.
Yep, you're setting to your spot. So say your spot's, a yard and a half behind you, straight behind you, and I go, because I've watched film all week. I found out where your spot is, where your set is, consistently, and we get to the game. I know where your spot is first play, so I'm racing you there. So if we're racing to that spot, if I get my hip in first, all I got to do is dip and rip, and I'm around the corner. If I lose that spot, if I get off the ball late, you get a good jump, you get to that spot first. Now that's where I'm in my counter rush. So my biggest move was a speed. So a lot of times a tackle would overset me a lot, which I could get into a power and take a man, head back into it, or I can club over a guy and come underneath them. A couple different ways that way. Sometimes our defense, we didn't have the freedom to come inside or outside just based on tendencies of running quarterbacks. We had a lot of very mobile quarterbacks back in the day, so a lot of our rushes where, hey, get going as fast as you can upfield, chop this arm down, set hips, rips, and come around the edge as fast as we could. Force that quarterback to step up because we had great interior guys like Ryan Drevel, Danny Lukey, Levon Perry that were just as hungry as we were to get to that quarterback.
I want you to step away, and we look at an open building right now, but what do you remember about this? What do you miss about this?
The excitement. Walking in at game day, we're over at the dining center having our team meal, just trying to relax, get ready for the game, go over the final moments of the game plan, and then you leave. You have no responsibilities until you're on the field. And you drive by tailgate and you see all the people out there having a blast, and it's like, all right, they're out there to cheer us on there. They're here for us, and it's a little bit of pressure. Hey, we got to go perform today. And then we get in the crowd and you get through warm-ups and you see everyone filing in. You see the student section piling up, and all of a sudden opening kickoff. Usually Ben pinned them deep somewhere. We tackle and then we got the crowd going on defense. It's that feeling of that noise, that excitement, that game day build is something you'll never feel again, and I'll always miss.
When you get down here, you think you could still do it? I mean, when we're running through the hills and we're going slow, I see a little bit of passion and drive. Yeah. You could still do it?
Oh, yeah. I still feel like I go out there and play right now. I told Brad one time, just give me your jersey. I'll sneak out there. Or Jared Tusco, he has my same number. I'm like, I'll just wear 93 one time and hop out there for you. But I would love to be back out there, but I love the guys that got pass rushing right now.
That's good stuff. Thanks for the tips there. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Cole Jerk, once a Bison.
Always a Bison.
26 total sacks, 193 tackles for loss, and of course, a couple of surgeries on his shoulders.
Just a couple.
Injuries, I think, are what cost him from making it to the next level, because he was headed there. He was good.
He was good. He's a big guy, too. That was fun to see that one out there. All right, we're going to step aside. We come back, we'll get you through the injury report for today. Plus, we're still going to hear from Coach Kleiman ahead of Bison and the Penguins. That's all to come here on the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show. There you see it. Less than 9 minutes to go before we get you out to the Fargo Dome and the Bison and the Penguins. Welcome back to the pregame show. Let's talk injuries. We'll show you who's playing and who's not. We learned King Frazier is not going to be playing today for the Bison. He is out with a rib injury that he suffered last week against Northern Iowa. Bruce Anderson still dealing with the ankle injury suffered against South Dakota State. Brock Robbins has been out for a while now with his foot. But here's the good news. Eric Perkins has a cast on his hand. He is limited, but we might see him on some special teams coverage today.
Yeah, he won't be returning kicks probably for the rest of the season. But he's out there. He's active. We'll see if we get him into coverage. NDSU could use the help on kick coverage.
Yes, they certainly could, especially against Youngstown State. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Let's get you out to Beth Hool standing by with Dr. Ben Noonan.
Hey guys, we're here for our Stanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine Injury Report, joined by Dr. Noonan. Have to ask you about cartilage injuries this week.
Sure. I think first you need to clarify when you say cartilage, there's a lot of cartilage in knees and hips. Typically we're talking about the articular cartilage, kind of the covering of the joint, which as we get older we lose a little bit with arthritis. But unfortunately in athletes, when they suffer an injury like an ACL tear or an hip arthroscopy, you can get in there and find an acute injury to the articular cartilage. Now, I'll tell you that we as orthopedic surgeons don't like to see that because it can really change the recovery course of a very straightforward surgery like an ACL. It can make it much more difficult and much longer to treat. But once you see it, there's a lot of options, and the options really range on how big is the lesion, how deep is it, and where is it located. You can do an easy option like just cleaning it up. The next kind of step in the algorithm would be something like a microfracture, if you've heard of that. And that's where we actually drill small holes in the bone to try to get it to bleed and fill in with cartilage. And if you get past that, you're starting to look at options like transplanting cartilage from one part of the knee to the other, or actually harvesting cartilage and growing it in a test tube and then going back in and replanting it in the patient's knee, or even using some kind of donor cartilage from a cadaver or a donor.
And I understand that stem cells are actually starting to be used in some of the ways you guys look at this.
They are. The big problem with stem cells, it's a very new area of medicine, so we don't have a lot of guiding literature as far as what type of stem cells, how much, how to deliver them, where to use them. But we as a group here at Sanford are actually working on some research looking at it, starting with some rotator cuff studies. But there's a lot of science and evidence coming out. So I think in some fashion in the future, stem cells will play a big role. It's just right now we just really don't know what or how to use them.
Well, thanks so much for a little bit of your expertise today, Dr. Noonan. That's another Stanford Orthopedic Sports Medicine Injury Report.
This is the Farmers Union Insurance Bison Football Pregame Show.
All right, just moments away from kickoff between the Bison and the Penguins. Let's go to Beth Hool standing by with Bison head coach Chris Kleiman before his team takes the field.
Thanks, guys. Joined by Coach Kleiman. Coach, on Monday you talked about a lot of question marks with injuries. Where are you guys out heading into this one today?
Well, we're down a few guys, but the next man has to step up, and you know that's been kind of the motto, and we've been hit probably more this year than we have in previous years. The good thing is a lot of those aren't season-ending. We hope to get them back sometime down the line. But today we're going to be a little short-handed, but nobody's going to feel sorry for the Bison. We have to play.
Youngstown State is coming in here with a phenomenal defense. How's your offense going preparing for this one?
Well, we've had a great week of preparation. Now it comes down to execution. We like our plan. We like some of the things that we'd like to try against them. Now, that being said, their defensive front and their man-to-man coverage technique is something that we have to see if we can penetrate. And if we're able to do that, we can be able to get some drives going. We can get a little rhythm on offense.
That second half offense has kind of been a point of emphasis the last couple weeks. How do you get over that hurdle? What do you say to guys? What changes to make that click?
Well, I think it's all confidence. It's just if we're able to make a few plays and get into a rhythm, then you get 4 or 5 more plays. If you're off the field on third down too frequently, you're missing out on 6 to 10, 15 extra plays. And if the more plays that Tim can get upstairs, I think the more it opens up his playbook. And so that's the thing we've emphasized is trying to win on those mid-range third and threes to third and sixes. You never want to be in 3rd and 10 plus. You're going to lose most of those battles. But if we can keep the chains moving on those third and mediums, I think it'll develop a rhythm for us offensively.
Thanks so much, Coach. Good luck today, guys.
All right, thank you very much, Beth, and thank you, Coach. Let's get to our Bobcat heavy lifting player, and this week we've decided to go with Jackson Kuntz, the punter for the Bison. Not often do we highlight the punter, but this will be important. Anytime that he is out on the field, he needs to be flipping the field with his kicks.
It is crucial to win the field position battle this week. 7 punts last week. He averaged 42 yards, a long of 52, had a 54-yarder a couple weeks ago, so he's coming. He's getting better as the season goes on.
He also needs to make sure that there are no returns. Not that he's really given up any, but Youngstown State is averaging over 17 yards per punt return, and they won the game last weekend against Indiana State on a 79-yard Darian Townsend punt return for a touchdown. So it will be very important that when Jackson Kuntz is out there, he's making it count. All right, let's get to our keys to the game. First one, make possessions count. I think anytime you have the football, you need to make sure that you're moving it and getting it either deep inside Youngstown territory or just making sure that your possessions count, because you may not get too many of them.
You heard Chris Kleiman say 3rd and medium is what we'll take. Youngstown simply doesn't give up points. NDSU needs to cash in.
Attack the outside.
Youngstown plays a very tight man-to-man defense. Easton Stick is going to have to fit that ball in, know where the throwing lanes are, look for quick passes to R.J. Urzendowski, Darius Shepard. Those two need to win one-on-one battles. It'll be quick.
And run, Easton, run.
With all the pressure of the front four, with good defensive backs, holes are going to be open. I would be shocked if Easton Stick doesn't run 15 or more times this game.
It will be interesting. We are about 30 seconds away from sending you out to the Fargo Dome and getting you set for this game. Final thoughts as we get ready for another 4-1 first-place matchup here in the Missouri Valley Football Conference.
NDSU is 3-0 in the Harvest helmet, 22-0 in the yellow jersey. It goes to 4-0 and 23-0. Mic drop.
Mic drop. That's going to do it for us here on the pregame show. We'll see you at halftime. For now, send it out to Brian Shaw, Lee Timmerman, and Beth Hool.